It is the year 572. Morgoth, the first Dark Lord of Middle-earth, sits in the deepest dungeons of Angband, after his defeat in the War of Wrath by the Valar. Feet hewn, hands bound, and ultimately thrown into the timeless void. Would this be the end to all the misery for Middle-earth? Was this the endgame for the first Dark Lord? Certainly not. Today in Fantasy Archive, we discover the dark history of Mordor and how it came to be the dwelling of the Dark Lord and to be the center of the reign of evil for thousands of years. You see, Morgoth was not only the ultimate evil to have existed, he was also a visionary. Like all evil villains, he had a secret succession plan in the event of his defeat. His plan B was to the east of Middle-earth, where lay the three majestic, jagged and ashy mountain ranges of Mordor. Mordor was almost rectangular, and with very few entry points it was nearly impenetrable, and a perfect place for evil to rise and thrive. In it was enclosed the Mountain of Doom, a volcanic mountain and devastating creation of Morgoth. Morgoth began his reign from the kingdom of Angband, which was protected in the far north by the Iron Mountains of Middle-earth. After Morgoth's defeat by the Valar, the orcs thrived and multiplied in Angband. When Morgoth returned, he wanted to restore Angband and raise three enormous volcanic mountains from the depths of the earth. They were known as Thangorodrim, and were the highest peaks in Middle-earth. During the War of Wrath, both Angband and Thangorodrim were destroyed. This is where Morgoth's secret plan came into play. Hidden within the mountain ranges, to the far south, lay the dark land of Mordor. In Sindarin, Mordor meant Black Land. The name was given even before Sauron settled there, and was named due to the volcanic eruptions. Mordor was Morgoth's ace in the hole, his contingency plan, a place where evil would not only endure, but also thrive despite his absence. Mordor was a roughly rectangular land in the Southlands, protected on three sides by mountain ranges. Ered Lithri in the north, Efeldalf in the west, until turned to the east. There were two narrow passes, one of which was guarded by the giant spider Shelob. Sauron built his main fortress, Barad-dûr, at Ered Lithri. The Black Gate of Mordor guarded the entrance at the deep valley of Udun. Mordor was thus protected from invasions and prevented the escape of those living within. The first resident of Mordor was none other than the giant spider Shelob, who was fleeing from the War of Wrath in Beleriand at the end of the First Age. Her appetite mainly consisted of men and elves. Later, Sauron settled in Mordor around SA 1000. He used Mount Doom to forge the One Ring. Soon, Barad-dûr became his stronghold and was known as the Dark Lord of Mordor. Barad-dûr is described as a vast fortress, a prison, a furnace of great power. The Dark Tower had immense strength, with many towers that were obscured by Mordor's ominous dark clouds. Sauron's evil reign continued uninterrupted for 2.5 millennia. From Mordor he waged wars against the elves and expanded his reign over Eriador, a period known as the Dark Years, which was ultimately interrupted by the Númenóreans. Sauron retreated to Mordor and sought to direct his power to the south and east, where he conquered the savage Easterling and Haradrim tribes. 1,000 years later, Sauron was captured by the Númenóreans and taken hostage. Sauron would eventually come back to Mordor in spirit form after bringing destruction to the kingdom of Númenor. In the Battle of Dagorlad, Sauron's plan to overthrow the remaining men and elves backfired. The last alliance of elves and men waged the final battle of Mordor, and Sauron was defeated. Even though the Dark Tower was destroyed, Mordor continued to be uninhabited by men because of the shadow of evil that remained. Nevertheless, watchtowers and fortresses were built around Mordor. The mountain fortress of Durthang, the towers of Teeth, and the tower of Cirith Ungol were built by the kings of Gondor to prevent Sauron's and his servants' return. This, however, proved to be a failure for Gondor in the long run, thanks to the Great Plague. The plague brought down the population severely, and troops were recalled. Watchtowers and fortresses were abandoned, leaving Mordor once again at the mercy of evil. The Lord of Nazgûl made the first appearance, and along with him came the other ringwraiths. Evil began to unfold one by one, Minas Ithil was conquered. The watchtowers and fortresses that were once used to defend Gondor were now used to shield Mordor and the evil that took shelter there. Sauron was forced to flee Mordor when he was found at Dol Guldur by the White Council. However, Mordor was well prepared to welcome back its Dark Lord. Once back in Mordor, Sauron openly declared his return. The Dark Tower was rebuilt, and Mordor was fortified like never before. The defense of the Free Peoples could do very little to capture the Dark Land. Many slaves were brought in from the lands to the east and south of Mordor. The slaves got their provisions from the vast fields around the inland Sea of Nirnen. To the north of Mordor lay the great garrisons and forges of war. Morgoth created Mount Doom in the first stage in the northwestern corner of the land, a creation that blotted out the sun in Mordor and kept it in perpetual darkness. It was no ordinary volcano. It responded to Sauron's commands and even stayed dormant in his absence. The destruction that the volcanic mountain spewed also brought fertility to the lands to the south of Mordor. The ashes from the mountains enriched the soil of Nirn and enabled farming. The name Mount Doom comes from Amon Amarth, a name it took on when it first erupted at the start of Sauron's offensive against Gondor. Orodruin was the name of Mount Doom, was known by in Sindarin. It meant burning mountain or fiery red mountain. Orodruin was Sauron's salvation and his only source of power that aided his sorcery and forging, his most powerful craft being the One Ring. Orodruin helped Sauron rise from the ashes after being defeated by men and elves. Mount Doom was connected to Sauron's Dark Tower via Sauron's Road. The mountain stood in the plateau of Morgoth at the height of 3,000 feet. Within the mountain was the Samath Nor that led to the Crack of Doom. This is where One Ring was forged by Sauron. The source of the One Ring to rule them all was also the only thing that could destroy the ring. This also spelled doom for Sauron, whose strength and existence was linked to the ring. During the War of the Ring, while Sauron's men were making their move against the men of Gondor and Rohan, Frodo Baggins destroyed the One Ring at Mount Doom. Mordor, the Dark Tower, the Black Gate, the Towers of Teeth, Mount Doom, Sauron, and the Ringwraiths were all destroyed. This was the ultimate defeat of Sauron. There was no coming back for the Dark Lord this time. The land of Mordor was freed of all evil. The remaining orcs were neither killed or scattered. They would be hunted for extinction by the men of the Fourth Age. Despite all the destruction and evil it saw, Mordor was capable of bringing back life. It was time for Mordor to see life flourish. The land of Mordor was given back to the defeated foes of Gondor and to the freed slaves of Nirn, who worked as slaves for Sauron's army.